All right, good evening, members of council, administration, our delegations, and certainly those who are streaming from the comforts of home. Do apologize for the late start this evening, but I'm going to report out that we did have a closed meeting, an in-camera session, convene in closed session at 6 in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001, Section 239, 2B and C, E, F, G, H, I, and J. When Municipal Act 2001 at the meeting, council received an update in respect of a matter of information explicitly supplied in confidence by the province and provided direction on an HR matter. And so we'll dispense with the moment of silence and national anthem. And we did acknowledge our land acknowledgement in the previous meeting. So we'll go right into disclosure of pecuniary interests on the agenda as presented to you this evening, members of council. None declared. We'll have that certainly duly recorded. We've got the minutes of the regular council meeting April 26th and the public council meeting April 26th. The Lachance drain. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes as presented to you this evening? Deputy Mayor moves. Councilor Houston support. Errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. We do have a supplementary agenda adoption. So if I have a motion to approve the supplementary items, Councillor Houston, Councillor Altenhoff, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. As you know, we have a supplementary item that has been added to the regular meeting, and it's the report DS 2022 entitled Industrial CIP, and also the recommendation for statutory public meeting and communications. And so that's duly moved. Delegations, we'll move on to the delegation, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island, our 2022-23 official visitors guide. And with us, we have Gordon Orr, our Chief Executive Officer, Lynette Bain, Vice President of Destination Development, and Jason Toner, Director of Marketing and Communications, and to present us and I guess to kickstart the launch of the Visitor's Guide. So welcome all three, the three amigos of tourism.
It's good to be with you, Your Worship, and members of Tecumseh Town Council. And yes, happy 100th birthday, by the way. We are here tonight with the latest edition of our 2022-2023 Visitor Guide, as the Mayor just mentioned. And we know that we had advanced copies dropped off at Town Hall today, and you're getting a sneak peek because it's being released tomorrow, and Warden McNamara will be there with us at that launch. We're also going to share a brief PowerPoint presentation highlighting some of our areas of focus for 2022. This is the third of 9 council presentations we're doing in the region leading up to the month of June, which is Tourism Month. And we do this for a couple of reasons. First, we want to make sure that our elected officials are better informed of the work that we do as an organization. And secondly, we want to provide you with an opportunity in a forum such as this to ask any questions that you may have of us. Before we start the PowerPoint presentation, I don't have to remind Council that tourism was hit first, hit the hardest, and will take the longest to recover. The path to reopening has been uneven and incremental, but better days are ahead. I've said it a number of times that we can hope for better days ahead, but we have to plan for better days ahead so those days are more hopeful. And that's what we've been doing at Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island, planning in concert with our stakeholders, so we're ready to go. And our message is, it's time to visit Windsor Essex. So we'll start our PowerPoint presentation, please. Next slide. Our mission: we are an accredited by Destinations International. We're the region's leading tourism industry collaborative, committed to enhancing the region's economy and quality of life. Our core functions remain supporting industry development and operators, actively engaged with our partners, and effectively marketing our organization. Slide, please. This is our organizational chart. This is the team of dedicated tourism professionals, including the three amigos that I have the chance to work with and privileged to work with every day. And an important part of that team, of course, is our Regional Tourism Committee, which is ably represented for the town of Tecumseh by Brett Palmer, your Senior Manager of Recreation. He has been a great collaborative partner. And before that, of course, the legendary Paul Anthony, and we thank him for his time on that committee as well. Slide, please. There you can see our organizational governance, 11-member board. It's a mix of politicians and stakeholders. You can see on our executive, Mayor Santos from the town of Kingsville is our chair, and County Council is ably represented by directors, Deputy Mayor Krista Malash and Warden McNamara. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Warden McNamara for his active engagement in our organization and in the industry and his leadership in this regard. When we look back over the year that was, it's tough not to recognize what we accomplished together within a united visitor industry, because the resiliency of the industry has been nothing short of a miracle. Slide, please. But where are we at now as an organization and as an industry? Our path to reopening has seen some growth. Slide, please. Our social media platforms across the board have all seen positive growth in Q1. Slide, please. Our hotel occupancy is static at about 40%, but the average daily room rate has gone up about $17 per room. Slide, please. Our website traffic has seen an 18% increase over 2021. Slide, please. And our digital services have seen gains and referral revenue. But tonight is about looking forward. Slide, please. It's time. It's time to visit Windsor, Essex. It's time. Slide, please. It's time to use our social media campaign designed to help have locals help us identify their favorites, knowing that where locals like to go, so will the visitors. Using our 7th annual Best of Windsor Essex Awards must-see list is there for trip inspiration, ideas, and motivation on where to go and visit this summer. Slide, please. Our 2022 Destination Development and Marketing Plan that was approved by our Board of Directors after extensive stakeholder consultation and engagement is available on our partner portal and continues to address initiatives to showcase the 4 areas of focus we have, which are, slide, please, food and drink, arts and culture, outdoor adventure, and entertainment. And our plan continues and contains new initiatives and programs designed to market the region and build upon our product development. I'd like to now turn over the presentation to Lynette to share some of those programs with you. Lynette, please.
Thank you, Gordon. New and enhanced product and program development initiatives we have been working on to grow the capacity of the local tourism industry and our stakeholders include a self-guided journey through our destinations past through an historic site's Vanished Villages Trail. Next slide. Conducting an LGBTQ+ market readiness audit through a stakeholder working group led by the Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. Next slide. Our newly released birding guide highlights how to be a backyard birder, identifying different species, and it includes a map of the primary birding sites in Windsor, Essex. The Windsor Essex Fishing Guide is packed with some of the best places to fish, where to grab your bait and reel, and what species are found right here in Windsor Essex waters. Next slide. A new paddling guide calls out to offshore excursions, boat launch points, and rentals. Next slide. Events and promotions for our Barrels, Bottles, and Brews Trail, including our digital flight log, and next slide, our first ever Fiesta Weekend celebration, which was this past weekend. Next slide. The Epic Wineries Digital Tasting Pass and enhanced event ticketing platform, slide, and refacing the directional signage to help with wayfinding in the county for our wine region. Next slide. In 2022, we will be investing money and resources into gaining research intelligence on who our visitors are. It will be timely, relevant data to measure visitation to the region and the economic benefit derived. Thank you, and I will turn the presentation over to Jason now.
Thank you, Lynette. Next slide. It's time for the return of our US visitors. One of our largest partnership campaigns ever with Destination Ontario and top-tier DMOs, Toronto, Niagara Falls, and Ottawa, entitled, next slide, It's Your Neighbor. It's a $2.5 million US targeted digital campaign placed in rubber tire traffic markets in Michigan and Ohio and launched this week. Next slide. Our partnership with Destination Ontario extends into the spring, summer, fall, and winter, focusing on outdoor adventure, arts and culture, and food and drink. Next slide. A major focus on developing compelling and engaging content is to enlist the help of both local and out-of-market influencers pictured here and content creators to showcase our region with itinerary-focused seasonal experiences. Like last year, this year, somewhat to a lesser degree, will still be the year of the staycation. Next slide. Our Summer of the Staycation campaign is a hyper-local campaign promoting things to do in Windsor, Essex, Pelee Island with easily downloadable itineraries, viable experiences, and more. Next slide. You'll notice this year's visitor guide is the official visitor guide, back from being unbranded as a staycation guide last year. Our main print collateral marketing piece will continue to be a great asset for locals to pick up in market and visitors to receive out of market, which will be launched at the Staycation Expo tomorrow. Next slide. Our website continues to be our most important digital marketing tool that we've added enhancements this year, including, next slide, trending content and blogs, new buyable experiences, deals and offers, and a profile on event guides. I'd like to hand over the presentation to Gordon.
Thanks very much, Jason. Next slide, please. We'd like to talk about the Ontario Staycation Tax Credit. And thanks to the Honourable Lisa MacLeod, the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries, she and her government came up with a $270 million funding envelope to act as a financial incentive to encourage overnight visitation anywhere in the province of Ontario in this calendar year. So attention Windsorites and our friends in the county, it's time to make it a staycation, and you can stay overnight in any one of our accommodations and save those receipts and be rewarded at tax time for doing so. Slide, please. We want to ask you to continue supporting local. The last 2 years, the community has really stepped up to do this. And on behalf of a grateful tourism and hospitality industry, we thank you for doing so. Slide, please. Our annual general meeting is Thursday, June 16th at the Canadian Transportation Museum and Heritage Village. More to follow on that, and you'll be able to register and hopefully join us. Slide, please. And thank you very much for your time this evening, and more importantly, for continuing to invest in tourism and your support of Tourism Windsor, Essex, Pelee Island. Mayor McNamara, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you or your council has. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Gord and Lynette and Jason. Any questions from members of council? Oh, that was well explained. But I must say, though, you know, all of our municipalities and lower tier municipalities in the county, you know, we need to really extend a real thank you to you, Gord and Jason, Lynette, your team. You're absolutely right in your opening comments. This has not been easy for you know, the tourism industry, and especially the service industry and retail and so forth. But you know, it never stopped you guys from shifting gears and basically going into different directions. And I really believe what it's done. And when you look at all of the great amenities that we do have in the county, and whether you want to spend a nice quiet weekend in Pelee Island, or you want to do the winery tours, or the casino downtown, you know, dinner cruises on the tour. I mean, there's so much. And, you know, you say to yourself, we attract people into the region for a purpose, right? To spend dollars. And then for us, obviously, with the price of fuel and everything else, there's some tremendous opportunities, you know, for families to enjoy, you know, so much within our areas. And whether you want to fish or birding or do them all, you know, we can do it right here. And I think, you know, the industry as a whole, and plus you're successful, you know, lobbying to the ministry in terms of loosening up some of the purse strings, you know, to bring here to help, you know, do a lot of the heavy lifting that was required, you know, to really, you know, showcase our area. And I think we're not so much a good kept secret anymore. And so kudos to, you know, to your group, the Windsor Essex, the Pelee Island Tourism Bureau, you know, for an excellent job. And I mean, as a board member, I see the excitement every time you guys present, and also the enthusiasm of the board themselves in terms of, you know, seeing a lot of new opportunities that are here. So congratulations on, I think, you know, a decent year last year in terms of, you know, what we had to go through, but you can see now it's time. Like I love the motto. We're seeing now that we're finally got off the off ramp, or the on-ramp, and now we're getting on the highway. So kudos to all you guys.
Well, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you in about 8 hours.
There you go.
Have a good night.
Take care. Thank you. Okay, our next presentation is the Tecumseh Industrial Community Improvement Plan. Very pleased to have with us Rory Bosch and Amy Greenberg from Dillon Consultant. And so I also, members of council, we do have a report further on. So after their presentation, I'll ask for a motion to bring that report forward. And Mr. Hillman, of course, if you want to also just give us some introductory comments.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. Very briefly, we have with us, as you said, Rory and Amy. They're planners with Dillon Consulting. We've retained Dillon, the municipality, to assist us in the preparation of an industrial community improvement plan. So they're here to give an update on that project, and then we'll be seeking some support from council to proceed to a public meeting. But I'll turn it over to the two of them and we'll go through the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor McNamara and members of council and citizens from Tecumseh that are present this evening. My name is Rory Bosch, and I'm pleased to speak to you this evening about the Industrial Community Improvement Plan for Tecumseh and share with you a little bit about our process and where we are headed. Next slide, please. I'd like to provide a bit of an update to council so that you know the good work that has already been started, as well as benefiting from a line of sight on the next steps as we work towards creating this very important economic development stimulus tool for the town of Tecumseh. Next slide. Of course, myself and Amy are here this evening, but behind the scenes is a very strong team of planning practitioners whose goal is to understand economic prosperity and help communities plan for a successful future. Of course, already thus far, we've had an excellent amount of collaboration from members of town staff, including Brian Hillman, as well as Chad Jeffrey, and we'll continue to work together to achieve this community improvement plan for Tecumseh. Next slide. So what is a community improvement plan? If you are not familiar, there is a tool in the Planning Act that allows municipalities to create a community improvement plan to establish priorities and offer financial incentives as a means to stimulate certain types of development. And in this case, we've already acknowledged that this is an industrial focused community improvement plan aimed at attracting a major new industrial development and investment in the town. Really a very exciting prospect for Tecumseh. Next slide, please. The focus of community improvement plans where they have been used across Ontario is very much on financial incentive programs, recognizing that having financial incentive programs makes your jurisdiction more enticing to a potential investor or prospective developer. And so the goal here, like I have done in many other communities, is to create a community improvement plan that is tailor-made to suit your needs around these very key financial investments. Next slide. The good news is that for the type of development that we are hoping to attract, your official plan already has policies supporting a community improvement plan. Moreover, the opportunities really, as we continue to see how markets are shifting and where investments are being made, more and more opportunities from our perspective seem to be showing up on Ontario's doorstep. Very much so, we want Tecumseh to be ready and prepared to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to it. Next slide. We have been moving relatively quickly. As you may have seen and heard in the news recently, there was a major investment for the Stellantis plant. We believe that is the beginning of more to come in the automotive industry globally and more to come in the automotive industry in this very important critical region in Southern Ontario. And so the lesson learned here is to make sure that we are prepared for that next big opportunity. In the last few weeks, we have been working on our background research, and although the slide says July 2022, we'll probably be around July or August, but still moving very quickly to have a CIP that is designed to unlock the opportunities for Tecumseh as it relates to major future industrial development. Of course, we are engaging with the community throughout this process. Even though we are moving relatively quickly, we believe that stakeholder consultation is important and is part of good planning. Next slide. So as we make the transition between phase 1 and phase 2, we thought it was an excellent opportunity to touch base with council on this exercise. We have had an opportunity to review background data and reach out to certain interests in the community already. And we're at the point of really, gathering our thoughts and beginning to figure out how we are going to shape the financial incentives for the community improvement plan. Ultimately, through a process required by the Planning Act, we have to have a statutory public meeting, and then it will be brought to council for ultimate approval. Next slide. So as I said, we have conducted some stakeholder consultation, and our view of stakeholder consultation through a planning process is the door remains open at all times for stakeholders to reach out to the consulting team, ask questions, learn about the project, and understand how their views can be heard and incorporated into something like this. So we will continue to provide an opportunity for stakeholders to reach out to us through informal means, in addition to meeting the requirements of the Planning Act. Next slide. So not surprising with the recent announcement and ongoing conversations about shifts towards a zero carbon future, new technologies, electric vehicles, new battery technologies, and all these other important things that are happening at this key kind of milestone where we are as a globe, and trying to create a future that is more sustainable for generations to come. We are not surprised that we are hearing things about green industries, green technology, and the automotive sector moving very quickly to adapt and change in this new direction. And the value of investment and the scale of impact is going to continue to be significant, again, both globally and locally. And there's an opportunity, really in front of us to make sure that we can create an attractive force for future investment of this kind. Next slide, please. We have to also realize that we exist in a competitive global and national marketplace. There are other communities looking to attract all different types of industrial development, not necessarily automotive sector, but they are looking for big investors. They're looking for big development. And one of the things we wanted to do for Tecumseh is, cast a little bit of a net and see what type of tools other municipalities were using to help land those big investments. And I'd like to just quickly acknowledge some of the tools that we found appear to be common, across what other municipalities have been attempting to do. Next slide. So through a community improvement plan, there is a way to create all different types of financial incentive programs, things that you may have heard before as it relates to a community improvement plan that you currently have. What I would characterize as a more traditional one for a downtown core. One of the very classic uses of a CIP are things such as grants, rebates, and other types of waivers. More commonly, we are now seeing tax increment programs or a tax assistance program for a certain scale of development or for a certain benefit to the community. A local municipality is choosing to waive the additional portion of the municipal tax levy, and is sometimes offering very generous waivers in the order of 100% of that additional tax levy for up to 10 or even longer periods, 10 years or longer periods. And that is a very significant incentive to major developers coming to a community. And so we are keeping our eye on those as potential tools for Tecumseh that would interest major developers and major investors. Next slide, please. So generally, we do understand that Tecumseh has a lack of shovel-ready land. Even though it is willing to welcome large-scale development, it needs to be better prepared. And as you've heard me say, generally speaking, we are right now in a very, very competitive economic landscape, with many other jurisdictions looking to attract major investment, in particular in this emerging sector of automotive around electric vehicles and self-driving cars. All of this new technology is emerging very quickly. And so it is super important that we address these constraints as we move forward through this community improvement plan. Next slide, please. So it's more good news than bad, I'm happy to say, is that there is a lot of momentum, economically speaking, specifically in this sector. And we're seeing new levels of investment. And quite frankly, Tecumseh is in a very advantageous geographic location, being in the Windsor-Detroit corridor, and having all of these existing industries in place. The opportunity to build upon your assets as compared to some other jurisdictions is really very significant and very positive. And the opportunity to potentially align with other federal and provincial incentives and programs that are currently happening. There's a lot of talk in Ontario about all of this economic stimulus that we want to have coming out of COVID. That presents a very significant opportunity for Tecumseh. And we, again, want to be able to unlock that potential. Next slide, please. And so as we work our way through creating this community improvement plan and thinking about the financial incentives and other strategic actions that could happen, the goal is to close all of the gaps. Look at different ways of funding approaches, simplifying matters as it relates to development approval, and continuing to make Tecumseh a place worthy of continued investment, and to make it a place that major investments might think of first. Next slide, please. So again, I would like to bring it back around to the very important parameter about this being an industrial community improvement plan, and a focus of this being very strategic and in terms of a major scale of industry. We see the synergies. We know the opportunities are out there. We are aware of ongoing conversations about future investment in Ontario with major players. We have seen one deal come to fruition, and we believe, again, as things continue to shift globally, there will be more opportunities to come, and the time is right for Tecumseh to make sure that it is well positioned to take advantage of the next big opportunity. With that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Amy Greenberg, to speak about some of the possibilities and the financial incentives. Amy?
Thanks, Roy. So in light of everything that we've gone over, the identified opportunities, constraints, gaps in the background, review of the other CIPs that are taking place, we have some potential options, but I do want to stress that they're very much preliminary. So behind the scenes, we're still working with the town administration on some financial analyses just to make sure that these programs will be what they should be, where our objective will help you, council, make an informed decision when shaping these programs. So the first of three is the tax increment equivalent rebate program, which could be available for 10 years, where eligible applicants would be provided with a rebate equivalent to the incremental increase in municipal property tax assessment and revenue, resulting from property improvements such as, but not limited to, new construction, redevelopment, and expansion. The second is building and/or planning permit fees rebate program, which would encourage the development and redevelopment of eligible properties by rebating fees associated with Planning Act and Ontario Building Code applications in the form of a grant. And then the third is the feasibility study rebate, which would stimulate private sector investigation of the potential to establish a new business or expand an existing one through feasibility studies, business cases, site selection studies, site plans, and similar activities. Next slide, please. So the CIP may contain specific criteria that a project would need to meet in order to be eligible for the financial incentives. So up on the screen are just some example eligibility criteria. And they would include benchmarks for the number of jobs created, the size of the building, the type of industrial sector, as well as alignment with existing provincial or federal grant programs. They may cover additional criteria that pertain to major new industrial investment and development. Next slide, please. So in wrapping up our presentation for this evening, this presentation has provided an opportunity for the project team to review all of the information and community input that we've gathered to date and craft some preliminary options on how the Tecumseh CIP will be shaped. The financial incentive strategies presented this evening are preliminary, and they will be reviewed further by the project team in further detail. We will also be finalizing the eligibility criteria that applicants would need to meet in order to take part in these programs. And the financial incentive options that are agreed upon between the project team and town staff, along with all of the other parts of the CIP, will be included in the draft Town of Tecumseh Industrial CIP. The draft CIP documents are anticipated to be presented to the public and council in June of 2022, with the final CIP tentatively planned to be adopted in July. Next slide, please. So at that point, I would like to open up the floor to any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Any open it up to members of council, any questions or comments that they want to bring forward at this stage? Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to Amy and Rory for the presentation, the information. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, where this goes and you know, our CIP, you know, be finalized, you know, come to fruition, and, you know, potentially, you know, what comes out of this, right? What, you know, what kind of fish out there do we lay in now that we've got something more official? The one question I have is just with the tax increment equivalent rebate, right? And I know it's, you know, it's not finalized, but is that something which, you know, all taxes are, you know, waived, or it's an increment, a sliding scale of, you know, 90%, 80%, 70%? Can you explain just a little bit more of how that specifically is being contemplated right now?
Certainly, through the mayor to the councillor, I'm pleased to offer an explanation, and I'll use an example. So say you have a vacant property and the current assessment that you pay is $100 to Tecumseh. And after your development and its reassessment, you would have to pay $1,100 to Tecumseh. So the increase or the increment is now $1,000. Under a CIP, if the tax incentive program said you got 100% of the increment rebated, then the owner would pay $1,000 and then later on be able to get the $1,000 back as the rebate program. Now, if we had designed the rebate program and we said you get 50% of the municipal portion increment back, they would pay the $1,000 and they would receive a check later on for $500. That's 50%. And then the other component of a tax increment is the time scale. You have the ability to then adjust the threshold over a period of time. So you can set the time scale to 5, 7, 10, 15, you know, quite frankly, any number of years that you believe is necessary to incentivize the development. And then you can choose to hold the percentage portion steady or have it change over a period of time. You could, for example, say to that owner, we have a program where your tax increment is 10 years at 50% locked in. So for every year after they do the development for 10 years, they would pay the $1,000, and every year they would get $500 back, which means over the course of the 10 years, they would get a $5,000 tax holiday. Now, if we scale that up to a very, very large development, very large investment, that is a significant incentive for them to choose your community over somebody else. And I hope that example was helpful.
It is. Thank you.
Councilor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you to Rory and Amy, again, thank you for the presentation. But just to clarify, Rory, you know, you're saying $1,000, but did you mean $1,100? So they would just be receiving back that increment, that increase, that $1,000? Because you said it went from 100 to 1,100.
That's
I
right.
just want to clarify that did you mean 1,100 or 1,000?
Yeah, so if it's vacant land, you still typically pay some form of tax on it. So
Understood.
the tax at the vacant land, in my example, was $100. After development, you're reassessed, and your reassessment is $1,100,
Right.
and the increment is the 1,000.
So yeah, you would get that. You would enjoy that $1,000 back, still paying that original $100.
Yeah.
The amount. Understood. Thank you. I just want to clarify that because you would still be always assessed that 1,100. And again, these are small values. They're much greater, we know, when it goes to actually practical implementation, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, so you in essence, you'd be paying for the raw land. If it was, say, zone agriculture, that $100 is the ag tax, and then the finished building is 1,000. So you'd be taxed at the the original component, over a period of time.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Well, I certainly think it's very timely. I think it's an extremely competitive world out there, and I've always been a very strong proponent that we have to be in the game. So I have an old saying that if you want to run with the big dogs, you got to step off the porch, and this is one where we need to step off the porch, and we need to be certainly competitive. And I think when you look at there's a cost, we get that, but then what is the reward? So what is the risk reward here? And I think the reward is very, very high, and certainly for the municipality, there's long-term jobs. There's other ways of collecting tax dollars in many other ways and so forth. But we've got two things that are, I think, for us, that are critical is the transportation network, which is called the 401, and the bridge, and access to market. Is very, very close, and our municipality is 8 kilometers wide, from the lake to County Road 8, and the 401 is exactly 4 kilometers, and so it dissects right in the middle of the municipality. And so it's certainly, I think, as Councilor Houston alluded to, I'm looking forward to the results of our public meetings and so forth. But any municipality, whether it was the Toyota plant in Woodstock or the Honda plant in Nalliston, or others, the Detroit incentive package for the Jeep electrification, the plant in Hamtramck, it all came with incentives. And so I think it's important for us to be in the game, because I think, like I said, we've got two components that are, I think, very critical, and I think are very attractive to investment. And now we just we baked the cake. Now we need to put the icing on it. And I think that's the important piece. So I'm looking forward to your end results, both Amy and Rory and your team, and what's going to come before us, I think, in June and July. Councilor Houston?
Thank you. And through you, we have the report, right? So is it timely to bring that report forward now?
Absolutely. A motion to
bring that forward? Yes.
And so that's moved by Councilor Houston, supported Councilor Altenhoff. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And then basically the motion is to that the report entitled Proposed Industrial Community Improvement Plan Recommendation to Statutory Public Meeting be received, and that the scheduling of the public meeting be held on Tuesday, June 7th, 2022, 4:30 p.m. in accordance with the Planning Act for the purpose of seeking public and stakeholder input on a proposed industrial community improvement plan be authorized, and further, that the county council be requested to initiate a process to amend the county official plan in order to incorporate revised community improvement plan policies that would allow for the county to participate in grant programs to lower tier community improvement plans that have been adopted in accordance with Section 28 of the Planning Act. So moved by Councillor Altenhoff and supported by Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is unanimous. Thank you. All right, we're on our way. Thank you, Rory, and certainly Amy for the presentation. Okay, members of council, we'll move on to communications. We have 7 pieces of communications. If I could have a motion to adopt, or I should say to receive. Councillor Toniol and Councillor Altenhoff. All in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay, communications, action required. We have a couple of items. One is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, dated May 3rd, and it's the Advanced Land Use Planning Training, a deeper dive workshop. And I think this is a very important opportunity. A motion that members of council be authorized to attend AMO's online training of Advanced Land Use Planning Training, a deeper dive on Tuesday, May 31st, 2022, subject to the town's professional development policy and funding in the 2022 budget. Councillor Houston move and support Councillor Tonio. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Second is Councillor Dowie. It's dated May 9th, 2022, and it's a request for town council for a leave, and it's recommended that council give consideration to the request of Ward 1 Councillor Andrew Dowie for a leave of absence while campaigning for Windsor Tecumseh MPP, effective May 11th, 2022 until June 6th, 2022, and suspension of his remuneration during the leave of time. Deputy Mayor Bichetti moves, supported by Councillor Houston. Any questions or comments? Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I just want to, I generally support this because I think, Councillor Dowie's, he's a busy guy and I appreciate what he's trying to do. And I think he's doing the right thing by this. But I just, in his letter, sorry, I just wanted to pull it up, excuse me. I just wanted to note that, he did indicate that he would still be kind of covering any issues which residents bring forth. That's where I was kind of a little bit unsure of, because it is a leave. Would he be allowed to do that, or
Well, I think his intention is basically, and I listened to a tape message that he sent out, and he said that with the 6 remaining members of council, that they could very capable in handling issues that would come up in his ward.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say I would certainly do my best to assist as best as possible. I can't speak for others, but I'm sure they would. But I just wanted, he's busy and he requests this leave, and I understand, rightfully so, and I think he's doing the right thing. But I just don't want him to be burdened with other people calling him when he's really supposed to be on a leave. And if we can assist in any which way, I'm happy to facilitate that as best as possible. Okay,
thank you for that, Councillor Altenhoff. And I'm sure all of us, we can certainly help him out and certainly take care of any issues that crop up and certainly in that ward.
Thank you.
So on the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Committee minutes, we have the Police Services Board minutes of April 14th. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes? Councillor Houston and Councillor Tonio. Those minutes, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Number 2, Personnel Committee, April 26th. Could I have a motion that those minutes of the Personnel Committee as duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted? Deputy Mayor Bichetti, Councillor Houston. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Our first report is from our Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Evans, and it's basically the Tecumseh 100th Anniversary Transit Service. And so I call upon her to summarize her report and bring a recommendation forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will defer to Carrie, who authored the report, if I could, please.
Not a problem. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of the council. As you're aware, the town's 100th anniversary celebration is scheduled Saturday, July 2nd and continues through Monday, July 4th. The celebration includes free community programming at various locations across our community. In order to provide opportunities for all members of the community to attend these celebrations and taking into consideration the limited parking at the event venues, the Mayor's 100th Anniversary Task Force is requesting Council's consideration to waive the ridership fees for the Tecumseh Transit Service for Saturday, July 2nd and Monday, July 4th, in an effort to encourage residents and visitors to use public transit. Based on the average daily ridership for the Tecumseh Transit Service, this would reflect an estimated loss of transit revenue of approximately $200 per day. The 100th Anniversary Task Force plans to promote the transit service on the event website and event promotions. In addition, we are happy to report that for Student Canada, the Tecumseh Transit Service provider will be sponsoring the event by offering a free special transit service for the anniversary celebrations taking place the evenings of Saturday, July 2nd, which is the birthday party celebrations and fireworks at Lakewood Park, as well as the evening of Monday, July 4th for the Windsor Symphony Orchestra concert at Lesource High School Theater. This special complimentary shuttle service will allow visitors to conveniently park their vehicles at the Tecumseh Arena parking lot and ride the shuttle service to and from the event venues. We acknowledge and thank First Student Canada for their support of this event. The report before you this evening is requesting for approval to waive the fees associated with the Tecumseh Transit Service for Saturday, July 2nd, 2022, and Monday, July 4th, 2022, to support alternate transportation during the 100th anniversary event. Thank you, and I'm happy to respond to any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Carrie. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I think it's a great idea, and we should be there. So I certainly, there's a request that we waive the fees for those days. So Councilor Tonio moves and Deputy Mayor Bichetti supports. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I just want to publicly thank Carrie for all of the work that she's done on the 100th anniversary celebration. This will be her last opportunity to appear before council, and she is leaving us effective Thursday for another opportunity, which sounds fabulous, and truly appreciate her project management expertise in this area, her leadership, very easy to work with, very competent, and we will miss her, although she is leaving the whole thing meticulously organized and in capable hands. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you. But I was just hoping that it would slip her mind and then she'd be back for the next meeting. But I guess that didn't work. No, I know the committee really appreciated your work. You were kind of the glue that kind of bound everything, and I know you're pretty meticulous in your paperwork and so forth. So you're certainly going to leave us in good hand, and you know, with budget being met and dollars collected and applications being made and murals being painted and a whole host of things. And we certainly want to, on behalf of the committee, council, and most importantly, our citizens are going to enjoy one hell of a party, but that doesn't preclude the fact that, you know, it's a weekend. So if your future employer doesn't give you the time off, tell them to give me a call. And because I think your stamp is on this, you know, on this event in particular. And so we just want to say thank you. And you know, what's the best, the door's always open. I think I mentioned that to you before. My door is always open. And so we wish you well in your new venture. I know it's pretty exciting. It's kind of a new venture for you and into the private sector. So congratulations. And if you were here, I'd give you a big hug, but I can't. But anyway, I'll send it your way. So congrats, and I wish you all the best, Carrie. And thank you for everything you've done, for our community. You're going to be missed. There's no question. In the committee, I know I talked to Kathy Cata today, and she was, oh my God, what are we going to do? I said, well, she left us in pretty good shape. So just a matter of us now pulling our socks and making it work. So anyway, all the best.
Thank you all very much. It's been an honor to work with you all. Thank you.
All right, God bless. Okay, move on to 2.8 development services, development agreement, Oldcastle Heights Inc., residential subdivision northeast corner of the 8th concession, North Talbot Road intersection. So I'll call upon our director, Mr. Hillman, summarize the report and bring forward the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to everybody. Quite pleased to be bringing this report forward, and it's with the acknowledgement of the developer, and it's a corporate name. You'll see on the report, Oldcastle Heights Inc., but it's fronted by Abdul Karim Habib, and he has a team of consultants we've been working with in the engineering division and the planning division primarily, along with our solicitor Ed Hooker, and his team has been a pleasure to work with. And I think what we have to bring to council that I'm hoping you'll be quite pleased with it. So it's a residential subdivision. And if we could go to attachment 1, please. And it relates to a property that's quite a history, and council will remember that there was an OMB decision that led to this land ultimately being identified as lands for residential development primarily. So I won't go through the details on that. I think we've had a number of reports that have come forward to council, but the important point is that we're at the corner of the 8th concession on the north side of North Talbot Road. You'll see a little etched out piece just at the intersection there at the southwest corner, and that's a future commercial block that is separate from this plan of subdivision. So the matter before us tonight is with respect to a plan of subdivision that has been given draft plan approval under the Planning Act by the County of Essex. So if we could go to attachment 2, please, and it's, I think, misplaced in the agenda just at the very end of the document. And so, yeah, there we go. Thank you. And this is a plan of subdivision to get our bearings. North Talbot Road goes across the bottom. 8th Concession Road goes along the left side heading north. And you'll see it identifies that block of land that had been outlined in red, and it shows a phase 1 and a 2 road patterns and lotting patterns. This is a plan of subdivision that had come forward to council for consideration and a public meeting. The county is the approval authority. Ultimately, the county did give draft plan approval, and that's under the Planning Act, for these lands to be subdivided in the manner that you've seen here. When that happens, there's any number of agencies that provide input, town council through recommendations we bring forward. We give proposed conditions to the county. And ultimately, one of the real critical conditions of draft plan approval is that a development agreement be entered into between the municipality and the developer. That development agreement ultimately sets out the parameters with which development will take place. So this evening, we're bringing that to you. And it's a document that was worked on by the town and its solicitor and the developer's team and the developer. So this is a proposal for phase 1 that has 64 dwelling units, 12 semis, 76 semi-detached. And then phase 2 has 68 lots. In addition to that, there is a trail system that wraps generally around the entire development and leads over to the east side, which you can see block 158 is a stormwater management facility. And adjacent to that, of course, is Weston Park. So it will be a development that has good connectivity with trail systems in the area, future to be provided, and to our own municipal park just to the east. The agreement that is being brought forward, and Sean, we could leave this image just for ease of reference here. The agreement is one that council has similar agreements in the past, and it really deals with all of the infrastructure that is to be built for water, wastewater, stormwater, roads, lights, sidewalks, etc. And the agreement spells out the standard of development and construction, performance That will be performance security that's provided to ensure that the works are constructed as detailed in the agreement. And ultimately, it provides details on how those lands will come to be the possession of the town. So this is a little different from a site plan. Works that are in the road allowance ultimately are municipal works. The stormwater pond is a municipal work. And you'll recall that on the very west side of the property, there's a buffer that separates this residential development from the balance of the industrial area to the west. And there are details on how that land will develop. So just looking at some of the finer details with respect to this development, all roads will have sidewalks on both sides. There are details around the perimeter trail and the trail that will go along the north side of North Talbot Road. There are details, and if one were to think to, for those here, about Lakewood Subdivision, there are details around curb, sidewalk, tree plantings in the boulevard. These are all works that will be installed by the developer. There's plans required for tree plantings along the trails themselves. Details with respect to the stormwater management pond and a trail system that will go around the pond and link into the park. There's a partial parkland dedication that recognizes the trail system. That's part of the stormwater works and corridor, and the buffer area counts towards the 5% parkland dedication that's allowed under the Planning Act. And then the balance of that 5% is a cash contribution to the town of almost $150,000 that the town can put towards investing in park improvements and so on. And the agreement also speaks to, there is the possibility that although it's showing a phase 1 and a phase 2, the developer has indicated that depending on the market conditions, they may want to proceed with one development. And that's exactly what happened with Lakewood Subdivision. And, you know, as things progress and the aggressive housing conditions that we're in, that may be the case. So the agreement has language that contemplates that. On the basis of that, Mr. Mayor and Council, we are prepared to recommend with the support of a town solicitor that council pass a bylaw authorizing execution of the agreement and any further documents that are required to implement it. And I'm very pleased to answer any questions if council has any.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hillman. Deputy Mayor Riquetti.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know Councillor Jobin was unable to be here tonight, so she asked me to share a few things. Well, first off, to thank the residents and the developer who have taken great interest in our community and in this development. The plan of subdivision conforms with policy, and the public input was well received. The trees, trails, etc., that also form part of this development agreement will be all coming in the detailed design. So the question is, what are the next steps down timelines in terms of this developer moving forward and having shovels in the ground?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Deputy Mayor Bichetti. The next steps are that if this is passed this evening, the document ultimately is signed by the developer. Securities are provided. It's registered on title ultimately. And then it is for the engineering drawings, final detailed design, which this document basically provides the roadmap and the expectations of how the development will look, how it will be designed. Those are already under review by town engineering. And there are dialogues going on with the developer's engineer. Once those drawings are approved, they have any permits required by the, for example, Minister of the Environment or the Conservation Authority, they can commence the development of the land. And it's anticipated that it will proceed in the next few months. Then there's the period of construction. And ultimately, they will move into a period of maintenance, and we'll have a report coming back to council, and they will begin the construction of homes. So we would anticipate seeing things happening this year in terms of home construction, and they're very anxious to proceed.
Excellent, and that is one of our first subdivisions in a long time. So can't wait to have that coming along, and again to thank the developer for choosing Tecumseh, and to also let him know that we have a lot of other vacant land that once he's done Oldcastle Heights, he can move forward and continue building in our town. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So no, if there's no further questions, certainly comments, I certainly want to echo Deputy Mayor Bichetti. This is the largest one since I think Lakewood. And so it's timely in that regards. So moved by Deputy Mayor Bichetti and supported by Councilor Houston. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's unanimous. Very good. Move on to B, which is zoning bylaw amendment for 205-227 L'Esperance Road scheduling of a public meeting. So I call upon the director again to summarize the report, or this is Mr. Jeffries.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attachment 1, please. So Suburban Construction and Management Limited is the owner of an approximate 1 acre parcel located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Dillon Drive and L'Esperance Road. And you can see it here on the map. It consists of 3 separate residential properties, municipally known as 205, 211, and 227 L'Esperance Road. And each of those properties, until very recently, contained a single unit dwelling. 205 and 211 no longer contain dwellings, as they were removed as of yesterday, I believe. The proponents are hoping to rezone the property to permit 4 2.5 story 6-unit dwellings on this site for a total of 24 units. Attachment 2, please. The property is surrounded by predominantly low density residential. It is in close proximity to a commercial node at the intersection of Riverside Drive and L'Esperance Road to the north. To the south of it, there are 2 2-story 4-unit dwellings. And then just south of that, at the corner of Little River and L'Esperance is a medical office. And Arrowhead Park is just around the corner on the south side of Little River Boulevard. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would change the zoning from residential zone R3, its current zoning, to a site-specific residential R3 zone to permit those 6-unit dwellings and to establish site-specific lot and building provisions. I should note that the current R3 zoning permits multi-unit dwellings such as townhouses, but it does not permit the 6-unit apartment style buildings that the developer is proposing. And that proposal can be seen on attachment 3, which is the preliminary site plan. You can see there are 4 buildings on the east side of the property, sort of addressing L'Esperance Road. There's pedestrian access through a sidewalk from the sidewalk along L'Esperance Road. There's a 37 car parking area occupying the westerly portion of the site. And then there's a common amenity space in between the interior buildings that you can see there. Should also add that there's a 10-foot wide municipal alley that abuts the property along its westerly boundary, and within that there's some hydro utilities. If you could turn to attachment 4A, please, and you'll see here's a bird's eye view of the development. So looking easterly on the top there, you can see the parking area and the buildings relative to L'Esperance and Dillon Drive. And then the bottom shows the facade from the front with the balconies, again, addressing L'Esperance Road. 4B, please. And this is just another artistic rendering from different perspectives. That's the rear of the building from the ground level, looking southeast. And then you can see the central amenity area there in the bottom picture as well. The buildings are 2.5 stories because the first floor, there's 3 floors. The first floor is partially underground, so it qualifies as a 2.5 story. It's not quite a 3-story building. And this is very similar to the St. Anne's Arm development on just south of Tecumseh Road on L'Esperance Road, and the recently approved development just south of that on the west side of L'Esperance Road. So in order to deem this application complete, the proponent submitted 3 supporting documents, including a planning justification report from Zelenka Pramel, which found that it was consistent with the provincial policy statement, county OP, and the town OP, and that it represented sound land use planning principles. They also submitted a traffic impacts brief from RC Spencer, which concluded that there will be no adverse impact on the area traffic operation. And finally, a sanitary assessment memo was conducted by Dillon on behalf of the town for the development. And it concluded that there would be no negligible impacts of the proposed development on the existing sanitary sewer collection system Administration has reviewed these supporting documents and concur with the findings of each one. We've also looked at the proposal on a preliminary basis in the context of the relevant policies, the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and our town official plan. And it's generally consistent with and conforms to those documents. It checks a lot of the boxes with respect to residential infill, compact building form, efficient use of existing services, and providing a different type of housing for the community. So at this point, we're prepared to recommend it go to a public meeting. And for that reason, the recommendation on tonight's report is that council authorize a schedule of a public meeting to consider the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to be held Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in accordance with the Planning Act. So, Mr. Mayor, those are my submissions, and I'd be happy to answer any comments or questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Deputy Mayor Bichetti.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is very similar, Mr. Jeffrey, to what you alluded to, the one that we just approved recently on L'Esperance Road. And if you look at the proximity and the need for diverse housing, I'm looking forward to the public meeting to hear from the residents in the neighborhood. We may see a lot of the similar issues. And the good thing is you've already heard them before and how they were mitigated down south there near St. Anne's Arms. And hopefully you'll be able to do the same with the residents if there are any concerns in that regard. But if you look at the location, that's 1 block from Riverside Drive, where, we're planning to do that Riverside Trail. We're looking at, the heart of Tecumseh Road, the collector road there, and we're putting 24 units. And you look at just the other application with Mr. Habib there at Oldcastle Heights. I don't remember being at a council meeting the last month or so having this much excitement in our town for housing. And so I want to applaud the planning department. It's been a long haul in terms of having these applications come before us, but I'm looking forward to that public meeting and again, keep building here in our town.
Very good. Thank you for those comments. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship, and excuse me, to Chad. As Deputy Mayor has said, looking forward to the public meeting on this and seeing a theme, right, of very similar units to this that are popping up on town, and I've got no doubt that there will be a ton of interest in these when they come up. The one question I had, and the difference I see in my mind with St. Anne's or the recent Smith ones that were approved, and I had an opportunity to chat with Brian Hillman with it yesterday, just with the parking. And I realize we're using like 1.5 spaces, but we've got 24 units here with 37 spaces. And I'm just wondering, overflow, if there will be more vehicles, here than the 37 spaces. At St. Anne's, we've got the Legion parking lot, or with the Smith development, there's the school right there. But overflow for this here, is there parking allowed on the street on Dillon, or would the overflow, if required, would that be on it looks like Shane, I think. So I just wondering, overflow parking if it's required.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Houston, this development actually exceeds the standard in the bylaw for parking. So they're providing above 1.5 spaces per unit. So we're not really concerned with the amount of parking that is proposed for it. But as to your question about overflow parking, I'd have to defer to perhaps the Director of Public Works, or I believe Mr. McCarthy is sitting in for him tonight, as to whether parking is permitted on the street that abuts to the north. I'm not sure if it is. Perhaps Mr. Hillman could also weigh in.
I could probably weigh in. I do believe parking is allowed on one side of the street. I know on Shane Street, Little River, I do not believe parking is allowed on, but I would have to check on that. But on most of our residential streets, we do allow parking on one side of the road.
Thank you.
Any, go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Aldenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I'm happy to see this move forward to public input. I'm interested in hearing kind of feedback with regards just to that one, one avenue of exit, if you will, on Dillon for the almost 40 cars, noting it's almost at that intersection of Dillon and Westbrook. I just would like, if there's another access point, if it's warranted. Again, I find that if there's going to be 40 cars kind of all pulling out at 7 a.m. to get to work, we may have a bit of a backup there. So anyways, let's bring it to the public and hear their input. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think most of the people that are there empty nesters or retired people, know those units. So I think there's more than enough. Go ahead, Mr. Hillman.
Thank you. Almost became a counselor.
Almost. You don't want to go there.
No. Sometimes it feels like it. So if I could, Mr. Mayor, this question comes up all the time and we do a lot of talking internally even. And what I would invite council to do is think about some of the other developments in the municipality that probably have a very similar circumstance. In fact, even more parking. So one that comes to mind is Lakewood, or just north of the Lakewood. Sorry, it's just west of Lakewood Subdivision on Manning Road, 2 condo buildings. I think we're in excess of, I stand to be corrected, 110 units. And it has a 1 access point onto Manning Road. And what traffic tends to do over time is, even though there might be 100 of us, we all interestingly leave about 1 minute apart. So, our roads have so much capacity that you're not staggered and stopped at the access point. And if you just observe some of those locations, because actually Tecumseh has quite a combination of medium and high density development that has, that 1 access. So interestingly enough, human behavior is such that we don't actually all, even at peak times, tend to leave at that instantaneous moment. And even if we do, you're able to make your exits and entrances to these places in relatively reasonable time periods. So just something as you're traveling, I would suggest pay attention to that. And because this, from our estimation, this would be quite satisfactory, this condition that we have in front of us.
Any further questions or comments? For me, the comment that I want to make is this is the type of development with, the infilling within existing services makes good sense. And most importantly, good for climate change. And building these type of units and right in a bus route close to park at the waterfront and close to 2 parks. Amenities that are there, and then eventually a beautiful trail that'll go right in front of it and will connect to to Riverside Drive. So I think it's sensible. It's good planning. It meets the provincial policy statement. I think, so I think it hits all the buttons. And I think most importantly is again. These types of development, instead of sprawling, it's it's intensifying, in areas of that services are already there, and amenities to help support the people that are going to be living in certainly in that corridor. So kudos to the developer, and and maybe at some point in time, if I'm not mistaken, the alley in the back's got all those big poplar trees. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say any more. We'll see what the audience or the public says when it's certainly in the public meeting. But I think it's very good, exciting, a lot of development. Any further questions or comments? A motion then to approve the scheduling of a public meeting. Councilor Houston, Deputy Mayor Bichetti, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. We'll move on to legislative and clerk services. 3A, the cannabis retail stores policy statement. Call upon the director to summarize the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you may recall, the Cannabis Act came into effect in October of 2018, legalizing access and consumption of recreational cannabis in Canada. The Cannabis License Act of 2018 was enacted to provide authority to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario to establish standards and requirements to license retail cannabis stores. The Cannabis License Act gave Ontario municipalities a one-time opportunity to opt out of retail stores to sell recreational cannabis within their municipality before January 22nd of 2019. Council resolved in late 2018 to opt out of retail cannabis sales within the town and to continue with ongoing consultation with the community. In 2021, Council reconsidered its decision and in June resolved to opt in to retail cannabis sales and provided direction at that time to develop a policy statement on retail cannabis sales in consultation with the Windsor Essex County Health Unit. Accordingly, before you this evening is the policy statement that has been drafted in consultation with the Health Unit as well as Development Services. And I'd like to also acknowledge Jennifer Alexander's work on this policy statement and our University of Windsor intern of last year. So the province of Ontario signed the AGCO authority to regulate and license cannabis sales stores under the Act and process all applications. The town and property owners within the area of the prospective location have an opportunity to provide feedback to the AGCO during a 15-day consultation period. Municipal governments have limited input on retail cannabis sales licenses and regulations and cannot dictate physical requirements and locations of cannabis retail stores. A cannabis retail store authorization may be issued by the AGCO unless they find that it's not in the public interest to do so. And it's defining the public interest as protecting public health and safety, protecting youth and restricting their access to cannabis, and preventing illicit activities in relation to cannabis. The regulation also sets a limit on proposed cannabis retail stores of no less than 150 meters from schools. For the reasons described in this report, the Health Unit is recommending in the interest of the public that cannabis-related businesses be no less than 500 meters from any school, library, park, recreational center, and any other use-serving facility, and that they be no less than 500 meters from any addiction and mental health facility. The AGCO criteria and regulations do not take into consideration radial distance separation from other licensed retail cannabis stores when considering applications for new licensed cannabis stores, nor tobacco or vape retailers and alcohol sales. So to avoid clustering, it is also further recommended that cannabis-related businesses be no less than 500 meters from any alcohol, tobacco, or other cannabis-related business. If approved, the policy statement will provide administration with guidance on commenting to the AGCO when notice on a specific proposed cannabis retail store site is provided. So with that being said, we are recommending that this report be received and that the cannabis retail store policy statement as appended to LSC 2002-16 be approved, and that a bylaw be prepared to adopt the cannabis retail stores policy statement and to delegate to the clerk the authority to provide municipal comments on cannabis retail store authorization requests to the AGCO in accordance with the policy statement.
Okay, any questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Allenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to administration, as well as, if there's any viewers from the Windsor Essex County Health Unit, my thanks and appreciation to working together and establish this. I think you've tried to take a conservative approach on distancing, these facilities or these shops to the vulnerable facilities. So I appreciate that we worked together and came up with this policy, and I support it. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I guess to the clerk, in adopting this, we are, I guess, providing, feedback to the AGCO, but will this be worked into any bylaw or policy at the town level of where we would dictate these stores go or not, or at this point we're just providing our feedback?
So Your Worship, through yourself, so the town can't regulate or dictate the locations of stores. Obviously, they have to conform to the zoning requirements. They have to conform to the building code and the fire code. So we're simply adopting a policy whereby we can provide feedback that we hope that the AGCO will consider in the interest of the public and this policy statement will provide that guidance to administration when providing that feedback to the AGCO. And so it would be adopted by bylaw in order to adopt the policy statement and delegate that authority.
Okay, and that's how I sort of understood it, that we can't, we don't have the authority to say where they should go, but this is feedback to the AGCO that, maybe down the road they would incorporate some sort of authority to us at a provincial level, but you've answered my question, so thank you.
All right, any further questions or comments? Then a motion as presented. Councillor Tonio and Councillor Houston support. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to 4A, Technology and Client Services. I believe Mr. Firth is going to bring that report forward and summarize and recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening again, members of council. It was about a year ago this week that we came before council, about a year into the pandemic at the time, and we were hearing from our residents about the real need for reliable and higher bandwidth internet within the community. So at the time, council authorized us going out to the public and look at establishing a committee, which we did in June. And the committee was comprised of Councillor Houston, who is the chair, Councillor Jobin, Mayor McNamara, Nicole Colnett, Aldo Donardo, Darren Drouillard, and Dan Grew. So that committee has met 4 times in the last year, and a nice mix of council and residents and business owners. So they've brought a lot to the table in the 4 meetings we've had since our inaugural meeting in July of last year. A lot of good discussion. They've really challenged administration to come up with some solutions or some innovative ways to promote and advocate for our residents who suffer from poor internet speeds. So whether it's education or school or working from home, it's all very necessary in this day and age and has been highlighted by the pandemic. So we established the terms of reference at the time, and I'm not going to go through them all, but basically, advocate for high-speed connectivity across the town, interface and consult with various stakeholders, whether public or private, encourage private investment, and again, just advocate for those ratepayers. So a few of the accomplishments to date, we kind of hit the ground running in July with, your council will recall, we launched that Tecumseh speed test initiative, where we had a little marketing campaign, and we sent out postcards to all the residents in the town. It was a 2-sided postcard, but the top side is what we're speaking about tonight. So go onto the site and kind of register where they are located in the town and what kind of internet speeds they're getting. So we say 50-10, so 50 meg download, 10 meg upload was the standard of the day, but as you know, the more the better. So after that campaign, we had about 1,300 responses. So that resulted in 1,300 more data points on a map. This is a very busy map, but just to give you an idea of something we kind of already knew, but this kind of data is invaluable when we're going out looking for grant funding or working with ISPs to really hone in and identify the areas of the town that are underserved. So you can see wards 1 through 4, it varies, but we're getting, it's hard to see on that map, at 50 to 180 to 420. And then in Ward 5 in the south, and we're getting 5, 4, 3 in the pure rural areas. The hamlets are doing a little better, but the digital divide is very evident after this study was done and these 1,300 data points were added. So we worked with CIRA on that, and we had attendance from that group, which is the Canadian Internet Registration Authority. And they assisted us with launching the portal and getting this data for Tecumseh proper. We've also had representatives from Connecting Windsor Essex. It was formerly WEDNet back in the day, but Dan Cercelli and members from that group have attended a few meetings to go over what's new, whether it's on the ISP front or the grant funding front, and they've provided invaluable information to the committee. And they identify a smart community as, or an intelligent community as having, 6 indicators: broadband, knowledge in the workforce, innovation, digital equality, sustainability, and advocacy. So we're touching on a few of these points with this committee, not all of them per se, but we aim to explore the other opportunities with Connecting Windsor Essex. They also keep us up to date on emerging technology, which is good. And they're experimenting with, I'm sure you've heard of Starlink satellite, which is a high-speed option for our rural areas. It's kind of not a Band-Aid, but an interim solution for those rural areas where we just can't get fiber to the door at this time, but it might be an option to stretch until that day is realized. We did have a group come in at our December meeting to explore public-private partnerships and what would it mean for the town to build this as a town-owned infrastructure. So we had good dialogue with those representatives on areas across Canada that they have had successes in this regard, and there'll be more follow-up with that. We have had a couple opportunities for input on provincial policy. So the committee reviewed some initiatives, whether it was items in the Building Broadband Faster Act. We just had that before council recently with respect to timeliness of locates, et cetera, which I'll reiterate that our public works and water departments do an excellent job of not holding up the process in any way, shape, or form. They're getting those locates done in a timely manner. And they also had something come to council early on about some concerns about the procurement process for opportunities. And we still are fortunate, and we have the luxury of having the mayor also as the chair of SWIFT, and that really helps keep us up to speed on these initiatives. Recently, we had an again, networking with the ISPs. We had a local ISP come in and kind of unveil what we knew through public works was already happening, but a nice fiber project in the south end that picked up a couple hundred more houses and businesses. Some already had a little bit through another ISP, but there's a large stretch of underserved areas along 46 and then back around the Maidstone Rec Center and Reston Road, just north of Highway 3. That was a nice little project that's under being built this year. And we hopefully from what we understand from the rep that attended the meeting, is that all these properties should be lit up by the end of the year with fiber to the door. So that was a nice win and a nice story for 2022 in building out part of the south end. We also had an opportunity to bring, there's a large tower in the south end, and we did some maps and did kind of our own site survey of the area. Took up the drone just to see what we could see in Tecumseh from there. And at the end of the day, we brought some parties together to the table who probably knew of each other, but never met formally in a meeting, and set them up and did the introduction. And they just took it from there, and they continued to discuss opportunities for that site. So again, not necessarily physically being part of the solution with putting infrastructure in the ground, but making those connections and that those opportunities prevalent with these partnerships in the private sector to assist with this last mile connectivity. So we do identify in the report some short-term, some long-term action plans, which spin out from the terms of reference that we adopted last year, and we'll continue to do a lot of the things that I brought up tonight. And then just as a reminder to council that in the terms of reference, we did identify that this advisory committee, the term of the committee expires with the term of council. So as you're all aware, we have an election this fall. So we're post-election, we'll review going forward with the committee at that time. So that's the report in a nutshell. So I'll turn it over back to the mayor and to council for any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Sean, for the report. Any questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Sean, thanks for the report. Thank you for all your time and effort, with this committee, and I just want to pass my appreciation along to Christina and all of our members who also participated, our community members. Mayor McNamara, you were there, and I think we had some really great discussion. I certainly learned a lot, and I think we pulled some community partners or community members together, and we pretty much did everything that we could. And, you know, in this area, our hands are sort of tied, right? Short of putting it in the ground ourselves and running our own service. You know, I think we kind of set out and we achieved, you know, what we set out to achieve. So, you know, thank you. And I think it was well, you know, the effort was, a great effort. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Houston. No doubt. I think just on reaching out and knowing our weak spots in the community and knowing, you know, from the folks, the frustration, you know, for those out in the county to have a voice and you know, there's more money that's going to be spent, excuse me, that will be spent in that area. But I think the information is invaluable. Joe, if you want to take it from here,
Yep, thank you. All right, do we have a motion there on that report? Moved by Councillor Altenhoff, supported by Councillor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. And I believe that's it. Mayor, you want to continue?
I think we're okay now.
Yeah.
It's so hot and hot in the office. It's incredible. But anyway, no bylaws to deal with this evening. Unfinished business. Hearing none, then any new business? Go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, administration, I had some discussions with a few residents regarding, you know, their strong interest to keep the trees, and I think we all would like to keep the trees on the new school development that's occurring on the north side of Tecumseh, just opposite Dorset Park. I think there's you know, some longtime residents have shown some really significant interest and attachment, and rightfully so, to some of the vegetation of the trees that have been planted there and have been there for a number of years. So I would just ask administration to be mindful of that. I do believe those trees are all on municipal property. So I'll raise that point. Please, if you could, make best attempts to salvage or keep those trees, or if possible, relocate them, if it's possible. Additionally, I was informed that some of the backfill that may have been used on one or two of the homes that have been demolished as a result of that school development may be material not suitable for backfill, i.e. foundry sand. So I would just ask if we could make sure we do our homework to make sure that we're using the right materials for backfill, noting that it is an area where the children will probably be playing within that vicinity. And if there is any material that is not appropriate to please have it removed accordingly. But I just bring that to the attention. I obviously haven't surveyed, I'm not the expert on that, but that did come to my attention. So I bring it to you to please act on and appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Altenhoff. Any further questions or comments? Any new bit on the new business? Okay, there's none. Then a 3 readings of conformatory bylaw is in order. Councilor Altenhoff, Councilor Houston, all in favor? Was if any, that's carried. Any notices of motion? Hearing none. Next meeting will be Tuesday, May 24, 2022, 6 p.m. start, public council meeting, ZBA 6780 Holden Road, 6:30, the quarter revision on the Lassance drain, and 7 p.m. regular council meeting. So with that, members of council, no further business this evening, then adjournment is now in order. Deputy Mayor Becchetti moves, Councillor Tonio support. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And with that, members of council, thank you for your indulgence. I know it's been a long afternoon and evening. Thank you for your indulgence, and so as well administration. Those who are also watching from the comforts of home, thank you for participating in our meeting this evening. And so with that, I bid you good night until we meet again on May 24.